Anton, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
So, no, thank you for being on here. I know it's been a little bit. I think we went into some scheduling conflicts, all on my part, and I don't remember. I think one of the things I'm going to start doing for every show is immediately apologizing to the guests and say, I know we probably had to reschedule this because of a sick kid or I'm sick. We almost had to reschedule it today.
Totally okay.
I'm all amped up on Advil, cold and sinus because of whatever we got going around now. I started to break out in cold sweats a minute ago, and I looked at my wife. I said, I know why I feel like crap right now. She goes, why? I said, I think I took more than what's recommended on the Advil, cold and sinus. She goes,
oh, man. Yeah, I had a cold a few weeks ago, so I was in the same boat.
So if you hear any moments of silence, that's me trying to hit the mute button so I don't cough and snort in your ear or anything like that. But
no worries.
So you and I connected, I think, on Facebook first, right?
I think so.
Yeah, but you also have a pretty active profile on Bigger Pockets, which I have escaped from. Not escape, that's a bad word. I have done less and less on Bigger Pockets, and but you're pretty active on there. So one of the things I like to do, or what I'm starting to do with guests, is make sure you are somebody of knowledge, right? So let's talk about what your real estate portfolio looks like today, right? And then we'll kind of spin off from there.
So today, me and my wife, we have 40 total units of real estate. It's kind of a mix between single family, some duplexes, but mostly in fourplexes. They're spread out across 4 states. So we have some in California where we live, in San Diego, Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, and then Kansas City. So they're kind of all over the place. And a lot of that came about because we live in a very expensive market. Kind of Southern California is very tough for cash flow. So we started here, but we started branching off into other cities kind of to look for better returns. So we got up to 40 units. These are all kind of our own. We don't have any partners. We don't do syndications. And we're getting about 12, sometimes more, $1,000 of cash flow per month from these units. So it's pretty consistent at around that mark, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. So,
That's awesome.
I think probably took us about 4 or 5 years to get here of like actively, buying units. So I think I saw something like you have 200 or 300. So we're definitely not quite at that level. But we're pretty happy.
So I always want to, there's an asterisk on that 328 units, right, that we have, mainly because there are, let me see, I forget the number, 7 that my wife and I own, and the rest of them were part of bigger syndications.
Syndications,
right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So if you average out the percentages, we're probably a little bit behind you as far as number of units. But when somebody just asks me, hey, how many, units, or I'm trying to talk to somebody, hey, it's a lot easier for them to grasp, hey, I'm in the bigger syndications. My wife and I own a couple, but the total number of units is 328 versus me going into saying, well, we own, this percentage of this deal, this percentage of this deal.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes the
complicated.
Conversation go. Yeah. I'm envious of your position, actually, that you don't have any not that our partners are bad, but just the fact that you and your wife have been able to build this, and you still work full time, right?
Yeah, I'm actually a big believer in kind of keeping with the spirit of what your podcast, tries to help folks do, which is keep your job as, your main source of income, your main source of growth for your real estate portfolio. So we've had, both me and my wife work this whole time. We still do. We save a big chunk of our salary. And that kind of one of the big drivers that allowed us to grow our portfolio, especially at the beginning. When you have 1 or 2 units, even 5 or 10, the cash flow that you're probably getting from them isn't like enough to buy 2, 3, 5 a year. But if you're able to save a meaningful portion of your salary, kind of combine that with your cash flow from the rental properties that you do own, I think that could really snowball into some fantastic growth. And that's been one of our main strategies, and I definitely recommend it. Because, you know, it's funny, I meet folks who want to get started in real estate, and they're always looking for, hey, where do I get the money? Where do I get the cash?
Yeah.
And that's why I think, you know, there's all those gurus and movements for like no money down,
Yeah.
start in real estate with 5 grand. And I think that's where it comes from. Folks just, you know, they maybe don't have a lot of savings, and they
Mm.
think, well, I need a lot of money to get started. So what do I do? And I think a lot of times they kind of ignore this whole, you know, W-2 aspect, because uh, at least in my view, you know, if I already have a job, you know, me trying to save a little more money is easier than trying to get a side hustle or find alternative sources of income or do crazy, you know, like double, triple loan financing deals that I'm not familiar with. But here we are, you know, I have my income that's like a readily source of funds that if I just saved a little more of it, could help me buy one property or two properties a year, and then just kind of go from there. So I think it's very, you know, kind of your W-2 income, your full-time job income is a very undervalued source of funds and just cash flow that can help you with that growth. So I honestly think more people should look into that and realize, hey, they already have a source of funds to finance some of their beginning properties, and it's their job.
Yeah. I'm a big, I love the saying, your W-2 job is the engine that can propel your real estate investing journey. Right. And I guess what I get frustrated with is I've more conversations I've had recently, people have money, but they don't want to invest in real estate. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. And why not? Let me show you what I'm doing. And the dots are starting to connect. But on the flip side, to go what you say, the conversations I have with people that think they don't have any money and whatnot, they have the money, they're just choosing to do something else with it, right? So
That's
then
true.
you got to get into this whole budget process of saving up, taking a year or two to save up, and not a lot of people want to do that because it is typically life altering for them, right? They're going to have to give up
Right.
going to the bar, taking the kids to this fancy thing that everybody in the neighborhood is doing or whatever. But it's those sacrifices that are going to eventually work out for them. A question though, you said your wife, and we were chatting a little bit before I hit the
Yep.
record button. It sounds like she's an integral part of of y'all's. I'm gonna call it an empire, right? You guys are building a real estate empire.
Sure.
Um, One of the things that I stress to the mastermind members and everybody that I come in contact, the number one thing you have to do is if you're married, you have a better half, you have to have them on board with
Absolutely.
that. So when you and your wife came together and said, okay, we're going to start doing this, how did that conversation go? Was she leading the calls? Were you leading the calls? Did it both just click for you and it was really easy, or did it take some convincing on either part?
Um, well, I'll start by saying I think you're spot on that, you know, if you're thinking about doing something like real estate and especially scaling it up, you cannot do it without support of your spouse or your partner, your significant other. It's a big financial decision, and sometimes, like you said, it requires sacrifice and maybe lifestyle altering choices, and you absolutely need to be on the same page. So it's kind of paramount. I wouldn't imagine doing real estate or even thinking about it without, you know, kind of talking to my wife and making sure she's on board. So,
Yeah.
you know, for us personally, it was actually a fairly easy decision. You know, when me and my wife kind of first met and then started looking at our goals, becoming financially independent and kind of, you know, retiring early, creating a stream of passive income has always been something we both wanted to do. Uh, you know, we both worked hard, but I wouldn't say we absolutely loved working. So we always had that notion that, hey, I think we you know, we want to not work, I guess, till 60 is the best way to put it. Like, we're
Yeah.
not interested in doing that whole 30, 40-year corporate job. So we were both had this interest in passive income, and real estate just started coming up more and more often. And, you know, when we looked at different investment choices and thinking what would work better for us. So uh, it wasn't, you know, there wasn't much convincing, I guess, to be done for either of us. I would say that I was probably kind of a more active driver, and I kind of spent a little more time managing our portfolio. But my wife, you know, she's supportive. She definitely helps out. So thankfully for me, I guess I didn't have to do much convincing,
Yeah.
because she saw the value that real estate can give us in terms of that passive income and wealth generation.
You're a lucky man.
Yeah.
And I am too, quite frankly. I don't know if your wife does this. And one of the things I love about my wife, and also it frustrates me, is I'll be grinding on an issue. It doesn't matter if it's the W-2 job or through real estate, something. I'll be grinding on an issue for days.
Uh-huh.
And I'll take 5 minutes and I'll go explain to her the issue. And then with just like that, she'll give
Yes.
me the most brilliant answer, and which is 90, if I get my stubbornness out of the way, is what we go with, right? And it just frustrates me that she has that much intuition about the whole thing. So
Well, I think for me, I noticed very similar thing, and I think it comes down to having a different perspective.
yeah.
I'm naturally like I'm not very outgoing, and I tend to be a little more like self-centered and let me just figure things out on my own kind of
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
But sometimes you're so into it and you're just thinking about something all the time. You kind of become close-minded, and
Yeah.
speaking with somebody, especially like your spouse who knows your situation, they can give you perspective that's completely different, and you're like, wow, what the hell was I thinking for the
Yeah.
last week? And not that like you couldn't think of it by yourself, you probably could have eventually, but
uh,
they just help
you
you
can give
think in a
yourself credit for that. I'm not going to take credit.
they just help you think in a different direction.
They definitely do.
I'll leave it at that.
I'm gonna mess with this thing right here on the microphone because I was rearranged. I'm out of my element. I rearranged my office about an hour before this call. That's why I'm kind of a little sweaty or whatever.
Okay.
I'm not used to this view, so when cars and trucks go by, if you see my eyes going, that's what it is.
Distracting.
I'm distracted. Yeah, may have to rethink this, or just close the blinds, one of the two. So let me ask you this: so y'all both work full time. Oh, let me back up. So there was a young lady who joined my mastermind, and first week in there, she says, "How do you convince your better half to do this?" And I was like,
Ooh,
"Whoa."
that's a
Uh,
hard one.
I don't know. I can give you my feedback, but that's the beauty of the mastermind. And there was 5 or 6 other people on the call that night and said, here's, what they've had. I said, but here's the thing. I don't think you should be in this mastermind until you talk to your husband and he's on board. Right. And she didn't like that answer, but about 3 weeks later, she dropped out. And I
Yeah.
don't know where she's at today, but it's just one of those things that was because in the religion she was in or he was in was kind of the driving force behind that. So that's like a double-edged sword. I'm like, no, no, no. Y'all two, I'm not taking your money. You need to go have that conversation with him. Y'all need to figure it out before we go further. Cause we're going to push you in this mastermind to take action that if y'all are not on the same page, there's going to be a divorce happening real quickly. Right. So anyway, I don't want to be that guy. So you got to be
No,
able to,
and I think I'm not a relationship expert by any means, but what I've kind of found out with these types of conversations with your spouse about money or investing or something else, it really comes down to aligning your goals first. It's not like the real estate is not the issue, and it's not usually the specific. I guess what I'm trying to say, it's more like, are
yes.
your goals aligned?
Yeah.
If you guys have a misalignment of goals between you and your wife or you and your husband, you want something and the other person wants completely opposite, like that's the problem that in my opinion should be addressed first and talked through, because goals, then obviously you'll be aligned on the means as well, if that makes sense.
Yep, definitely does. So you guys are in multiple markets, right? You live in San Diego.
Right.
You've got investments in San Diego as well.
We do, yeah.
So how did you land in Birmingham and Atlanta? I'm just curious because I spent some time in Birmingham. I drive through Atlanta. I don't know, once or twice, maybe 4 times a year
Yeah.
to go see the in-laws. Neither one are markets that I want to be in, but I'm just curious on from San Diego. How do you guys landed there?
We actually, so I kind of evolved my market selection strategy, as I call it. The most recent market that I was happy with was actually Kansas City,
Yeah.
and that's where we actively invest. So Atlanta and Birmingham, we invested, about five years ago or so. They were a lot cheaper than they are now.
Okay.
But my strategy generally comes down to, um, it's complex. I have like this whole checklist that I go through, but if I had to boil it down, I look at markets that first are pretty strong in terms of economy and population growth and job growth. So I want, kind of, it doesn't have to be, market like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco that's absolutely booming. But I don't like a lot of Midwest cities that are kind of stagnant, not much growth. And kind of Birmingham is probably on the cusp of that criteria. I definitely like Atlanta in terms of job growth, population growth. Same with Kansas City. They're very, they're kind of thriving cities, I guess you can call them. People want to live there. People have jobs, and kind of you see positive macroeconomic trends in those markets. And what I found is when you have conditions like that, it tends to drive both price and rent appreciation
Hmm.
in most areas. And I think those are some of the keys to being successful buy and hold investor, like myself and my wife. It's very tough to make money in the long term if the prices are flat and the rents are flat.
Yeah.
Because chances are your expenses are still going to be growing because of
Go up.
inflation and just rising prices. And, your cash flow that you get today is not going to be there 5 years from now. So we want to see those trends. And I think if you focus on kind of job population and economy growth, that'll foster the price and rent appreciation for you. So that's one of the keys I look at. And I also kind of look at relative, you know, uh, basically price to rent to price ratio. So how undervalued is the market? If you look at markets like New York, again, San Francisco, I'll just throw them out there. They
Sure.
have crazy growth, but the prices there are so high relative to the rents that it just will not cash flow. You won't get much return. And on the other hand, there's markets where like, very, kind of good rent to price ratios, but the growth is just not there. Um,
What is a good
Instead,
rent to price ratio? What are you looking for in that
well,
range?
so that's like your if your listeners have ever heard of the 1% or the 2% rules, that's where they come from. That's the
Yeah.
uh, the price to rent ratio expressed kind of as some uh, arbitrary criteria. I mean, I'd say 1% is probably my minimum.
Yeah.
2% markets tend to be like your very cheap, but also the growth is just not there.
Yeah.
A
Your
lot of
class
Midwest
D,
cities are like
right?
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just they look good on paper. They have crazy cash flow, 10% cap rate. But when you look at the again macroeconomic factors in those areas, they're just not there. And I think 5 years from now, your cash flow is going to be non-existent because especially if you sell the property for the same price you bought it, factor in your closing costs, you lost money on the price, and whatever cash flow you made could be just wiped out.
Yeah.
So probably about between 1.5% is probably where our properties lie. I just found that to be like a good balance between still having good growth, good macroeconomic factors, and relatively cheap prices. So we're kind of picking up, for example, in Kansas City, where we're buying units for around 50, 60,000 per unit. These are for multifamily properties, which is not, as cheap as some markets. Like I hear people buying, 20,000 per unit properties in the Midwest. But they're, definitely, I think, well performing
Yeah.
for us in the long term.
So when you buy these properties, do you have mortgages on all of them? Do you aspire to pay cash for them? How do you go about financing if there is any financing?
I'm always a proponent of financing. So I think just with using financing and leveraging your investments, your returns will skyrocket. So if we look at your cash on cash return, your overall ROI, IRR return rates, leveraged versus unleveraged, the leverage most always will win. If the property's cash flow can support the loan payment, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of financing. We have financing on all of our properties. Now we have bought a few of them cash, just usually for reasons like it was a kind of a fixer up, or it was hard to get financing. So almost like a BRRR strategy, or maybe it was a competitive situation, and I felt like a cash offer looked better. But we would refinance them, 6 months to a year from purchase, into some sort of long-term financing, even if we bought them cash.
Yeah.
So kind of buying cash is more of like either a necessity, or just, you're planning to maybe rehab it significantly and then increase its uh, after repair value, and then get a higher kind of loan on it.
Yeah.
But definitely financing is the way to go.
Completely agreement with you there. So you guys are getting 12,000 a month, and is that net or gross?
That's net. That's
Net,
after,
everything.
all expenses, vacancy,
Yeah.
capex, accountability, right?
So that's a pretty amazing number. And one of the things that I've seen as we kind of progress in our portfolio expansion, if you will, is how it takes that momentum a while to get going, but once it's
Yes.
there, man, it is hard to stop. And when you start taking in that much cash flow, the doors of opportunity just open up. So what are you doing with that 12,000 of monthly cash flow when it comes in? I'm assuming you're turning around and reinvesting it, or looking at
Yeah,
other stuff
no,
to do
exactly
with.
that. We actually, ever since we bought, our first property, we've saved 100% of our cash flow from rental properties. So I've never used it for anything other than buying more properties.
You
Uh,
don't take the wife out to a nice dinner every now and then just to.
No, well, and the key, I'm coming back to us working full time. We always treated our cash flow from rental properties as extra income that is getting right back into our investments.
Yeah.
And kind of one of the reasons for that is because we still work and we still have these incomes, and that's what's paying our bills and kind of supporting our lifestyle. So we've kind of relied on that income. Any extra income we've ever generated from our businesses or rental properties or other investments, we always treated it as like, this isn't spending money. We just pretend like this money doesn't even exist, and it's going straight back to our investments. So it does require discipline. Obviously, it's something you mentioned before, like even saving part of your salary takes discipline and some sacrifices. That is very true. But I think that kind of that level of financial discipline is necessary if you want to grow a portfolio, be a successful investor. You need to kind of figure that out early, because it's only going to get worse if you have rental properties. If you're
Oh yeah.
making 10 extra thousand from just cash flow from rentals, then you buy an even bigger house, start spending all that money, acquire maybe consumer debt. You're just digging a hole for yourself. So
Yeah.
working on kind of establishing financial discipline, learning about budgeting, savings, very much all the things that you kind of mentioned, the basic personal finance principles. If you can master them, in the beginning stages, then when your cash flow does grow, and we're like talking an extra digit at the end of everything, you can still use those same principles, rely on them, and they'll serve you, for as long as you live, basically.
That's awesome. Yeah. I actually, I have a lot of, I don't know, I probably have 10 different accounts that I use for our investing stuff. So when rent comes in or different revenue comes in, it immediately is dispersed out to these other,
Right.
and it's a little bit harder for me to get. So if I transfer in and out of those accounts, it takes me, sometimes 5 to 7 days. So
Yeah.
if there's any urge for me to, grab something, then I have to think about it for a while. Right.
We
So
do something very similar. It's, in fact, we treat, kind of our real estate as a business, and,
yeah.
I have kind of the, other business ventures, and that money is in those accounts. I never even see it in my personal
Yeah.
bank account.
So let me ask you this, and I'm sure you and your wife have had this conversation, but I have my own reasons. And it's mainly, the reason why I started W2 Capitalist is because I kept seeing all the fire movement and stuff that was going on with
Yeah.
that, and how you're going to invest, and then you go live in mom's basement and you can be financial independent. Well, financial independent and financial freedom are two separate things, right?
Yes.
So, but why do you and your wife, if you want to answer for her, I don't know, why do you continue to work, because not only do you have your day job, you've got a side hustle amongst the real estate investing, and we'll get into that here in a minute. So why do you continue to work?
So I'll answer your question, but I'll say that we're actually really close to completely quitting our W-2 jobs and basically realizing our goal of retiring early. And that was our goal from the beginning. Ever since we kind of started getting into finances and investing and figuring out the best path for us, our sole goal or our main overarching goal has been to quit our jobs by having enough passive income basically to replace our salaries.
Yeah.
And we've made a decision that until we're there, we're going to keep on working because, like I mentioned earlier, having that stable income and saving a big chunk of it is one of the biggest growth factors. So we're basically, we had a goal to get to a certain amount of passive income each month and year. Basically, that would replace our salaries and would sustain our living expenses. And we're actually very close to that goal. And we're probably in the next year or so, we're going to finally quit our jobs and, retire from at least our full-time careers. Still keep the real estate thing, the side businesses going. But, all this time we knew that, hey, we're going to keep on working because it's kind of driving all this growth and helping us achieve our goals faster. But then as soon as we get our goals, then we're done.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's I'm similar. I don't know. It would be real hard for me to ever imagine a world where I didn't have to go to work, right?
I
and,
can't
and
wait for that.
I understand, and
Yeah.
because I took off. We're recording this on Saturday. I took off Thursday and Friday for some other stuff that I've been doing,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, I woke up today like not like, what do I do? Like I felt like Ricky Bobby. I didn't know what to do with my hands. You know what I'm saying? It just
Yeah.
so I'm sure it can be something that I can get used to, but I never started investing. At least I don't remember starting investing. Say, hey, I'm going to quit my job or whatnot. Maybe I did. It's been so long ago, and now we've kind of tapped into this movement to help other people. And matter of fact, Jake from Jake and Gino challenged me. He said, it was earlier this year, or no, it was late last year. He
Did
said,
you go
I
to
think,
one of their events?
no, I was supposed to, but we had a tropical storm come this way
Okay.
when I was supposed to leave, and I didn't feel like leaving the kids and wife.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all deal with this tropical storm. I'm going to South Florida. But he challenged me. He said, I think you'll be done with the W-2 in a year. And I'm like, I didn't say yes or no. I think what I answered and what I think will really happen is if I am able to help more people by leaving corporate America, then that's when I know it'll be time to pull the plug, right? And that so. What will happen with the W-2 capitalist at that point in time? Who knows? We'll see. But I
Well, I
have
think,
no end date for my big goal is to build 300 years of legacy wealth.
yeah.
That's a goal I'm never going to achieve, right? But it's at least something I'm grasping for, and it helps me think in such a different world. Um, I can't imagine not having that engine to invest money into the real estate. So I don't know. Lots to think about between here and there. I think it's a further date than you and your wife. But
Well, I think the
congratulations.
beauty that you gain with having, this residual passive income and all these investments, and that's kind of always how I looked at it, is you gain the freedom. Like you said, you get that financial freedom. It doesn't mean that you have to retire then. It doesn't mean that you have to
Right.
quit your job. It just gives you the freedom to do what you actually want to do. So whether, if you're totally stoked to go to work and you love what you do and kind of you love the, uh, helping people or working with people there, like, great.
Yeah.
Nobody says you can't do that. If you want to quit, and some people, maybe want to do volunteer work, uh, because that's kind of where their heart is, then you can do that because you have the financial means to support yourself. Or,
Right.
you quit and maybe you dedicate more time to W-2 capitalist and, running your mastermind group and other ventures, even though maybe that's not making, as much money as you used to make at your corporate job, let's say. you can still do that. That's kind of why I think the power of passive income comes. It's the freedom that you gain from it to kind of do what you want. It doesn't mean that you have to quit your job. It just means that you can if you wanted
Got the
to.
means to.
Yeah, or you can pursue really any venture that you always wanted to do without worrying like how I'm going to pay rent or how I'm going to pay my bills this month.
Yeah, you got me to think. I don't know if I would feel like so much of a hypocrite if I were trying to lead the W-2 capitalist army, so to speak, and not have a W-2 job. I don't
I
know.
mean, some definitely
It's
to
something to
think
think
about, but
about, but I don't know that it may I may be able to get away with it for a while, but there's something that just tells me that I wouldn't be able to. The authenticity goes
oh,
away.
it almost seems like the pinnacle achievement of your movement to me, actually. I
Could
would
be.
imagine that most of your listeners, and again, I could be wrong, but I would imagine that most people listening to your podcast that have W-2 jobs, but are, pursuing investing or real estate, probably doing that because they don't want to, have that job forever,
Yeah. Very
or
possible.
until they're 60. So in fact, if you leave your job and kind of because of what you achieved, through the principles that you teach, that could be seen as almost a, hey, this is like the ultimate achievement
That's
of the
true.
movement.
That's true. I need to hire you as my consultant and coach.
uh,
So you do have your W-2 job. You also have your investments going on, but then you have a third thing going on, which I'm pretty excited about. And for those people who have been listening, um, you've been hearing me boast about it in the intros and whatnot for a couple of weeks now. And that is the platform DealCheck.io, right? So you're the
yep,
founder of that. Am I correct?
I am. Yes.
Founder, creator, all of the above and below of that. So give us the inside scoop. They get tired of hearing. I think they're tired of already hearing me say this. Although I've seen a
Because
few
you play the
people.
same recording, or
No. I try to wing it a little bit,
okay.
but it's very similar wording. But I've seen a few people already sign up, and they're going through their trial, right? And they're
Yeah.
using promo code W2CAP. But yeah, tell us about that. Tell us what sparked that a little bit, and some of the major benefits that probably aren't as highlighted as much from if just going to the website and seeing the demo.
Sure. So, uh, Deal Check basically came about in 2015, and um, when I was myself kind of looking at a lot of rental properties, I was driving around, and as probably most of your listeners know, analyzing the cash flow projections, the potential returns, how much cash you'll need to buy a property, all those kind of financial numbers are probably one of the most important thing you can do when you're buying rental properties. You might have heard a lot of people say you make money in real estate when you buy, and I'm kind of a firm believer in that.
Oh
And
yeah,
a big part of that comes to actually understanding the financials behind a real estate investment, and ultimately, is it actually going to make you money? Because I don't know what the percentage is, but probably at least half or even more properties that you'll come across will lose you money, and only a small fraction are like those great deals that you hear about that uh, they'll actually be worth your investments. But you're never going to know that unless you have a very kind of consistent, accurate method of predicting and analyzing the cash flow projections from rental properties, flips, wholesale deals, really any real estate transaction. So I was in the same boat. When I was actively looking for properties, I was trying to analyze them, especially like quickly and in bulk. And I used Excel for a while, as many investors do, the
oh
good
yeah,
old spreadsheet, just something I think I downloaded from somebody, then like modified it. It was getting to a point where basically it was like I was making mistakes and it was an unwieldy process. I had like a million tabs in Excel, one for each property. Then sometimes I'd modify like a formula or the way calculation is done in, one tab. I'd forget to change it in the other tabs. Basically, it was a mess. It was hard to manage. And I thought, well, there's got to be a better way to do this, like in some sort of systematized, like organized way. And I looked at what was available on mobile, on desktop, uh, back in 2015. I really didn't find a tool that I liked particularly. They were either like old or clunky or hard to use, or some of them cost like, I don't know, $1,000. I've seen software analysis platforms for real estate investors like $997 to buy, and I was like, that's crazy. Um, so being a software developer myself, that was kind of my full-time job at the time. I thought, why don't I make something to, for myself, maybe share with a few people and see how it goes. So I actually threw together a mobile app version of DealCheck first. So it was a simple mobile app where you could plug in some numbers and run a pretty simple like crude analysis calculation. But I thought, hey, I'd be driving around looking at a lot of properties. This can like help me, because it's hard to use Excel on your phone, especially. Like
Yeah, it
it's
is.
almost impossible.
Yeah.
So I put together this mobile app. It worked well for me, and then I talked to a few of my friends, and they found out about it, and they're like, "Hey, can you like send me a link?" So I actually published it on the iOS and Android stores, so they could download it. It was actually free, at the beginning. I didn't charge for it or anything. And to my surprise, like they loved it. They were like, "Man, this is awesome! Like, can you, they start asking for new features and like, can you do this? Can you improve on that?" And that was basically the start of DealCheck. It was
Nice.
almost like an accidental project. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't do any of that stuff that you're supposed to do when starting a business. I didn't even like do market research, but
Yeah.
it just came about and it started growing organically, slowly for the first few years. But then since like 2017, so for the last 3 years or so, we really found our market fit with this product, released a web-based version, iOS, Android app, added a ton of features, and it grew tremendously. And now we have over, I think it's 110, 120,000 investors that use DealCheck, to analyze basically any type of investment property, rentals, flips, BRRRs, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat method, multifamily, commercial deals, wholesale deals. So I've been very happy with we expanded our team and how quickly the product's been growing. It's really been amazing to hear the stories of investors. I get emails almost daily, people saying, "Hey, your tool like saved me from buying a horrible deal," or on the flip side, like I used your tool and I was able to screen properties really quickly,
Right. Yep.
and I could put in an offer like the same day, with confidence, and it helped me close on this great house. So that's obviously the main benefit of the software. It was we didn't want to get into like a lot of like CRM or like lead generation. It was DealCheck is solely focused on being a go-to platform for property analysis. So we built a whole feature set around that. Obviously, in addition to the core calculations, you can import property data quickly from public records and active listings. So you just type in an address and it'll pull, these like how many bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, like all of that for you. So you don't have to type it all in. Last year we released sales comps, so you can pull up a bunch of recent sales comparable properties, see how much they sold for, help you estimate the ARV, especially when you're doing flips. We have rental comps as well. So you can see, up to 20 comparable rental listings in the same area, how much they're renting for, so you can find a good rental price for your property. And also, that's important in projections.
Oh,
You don't
yeah.
want to overestimate the rent and then you can't rent it for that much. So, we have ability to upload photos. You can add notes. You can generate PDF reports. So it'll put all the analysis information for you, give you this really nice formatted PDF in like seconds. We have a lot of agents and kind of wholesalers use that tool if they basically need to share the property with somebody. Actually, some syndicators, I believe, use it as well to like distribute the property report. Then we have this offer calculator, which is basically a reverse valuation analysis tools that says like, hey, I want a minimal cash flow of $300 a month. I want a cap rate of 6%. I want cash on cash of 12%. So you just plug that in and it'll tell you what is the maximum price you can offer on the property.
Probably my most favorite part about your software is that right there, because
Yeah.
years ago I got tired of going through the other calculator that you and I are probably familiar with.
Yeah.
And I was sitting here guessing at numbers, and finally I got tired of guessing at numbers, and I emailed, whoever their development team is, and say, look, guys, here's an idea. I want to hit this number and this number and this
Yeah.
number. Just tell
It's
me my
it's
offer price. That's all I want to know. And they,
Right. It's a very common request, and like it's
yeah,
not something that's easily, because like you said, if the calculator doesn't offer that feature, you're gonna be like, okay, let me drop the price by 10,000. Nope. Okay,
yeah,
let me drop by 50,000. Okay,
yeah,
yes, but maybe drop it by 40,000. So like you're guessing there. It's hard to use. Deal check. You just plug in all of your criteria. A second later, you have your offer price.
yeah,
And then that, hey, if I offer this to the seller, then it'll meet all of my criteria. So then you just have to see like how much of a discount this is versus asking whether it's realistic, or if it's too low, that you have to move on because you're just not going to make money on this deal. So it's basically a whole suite of features that we've built specifically around deal analysis. That's kind of what we pride ourselves on, and we want to be that go-to platform. And like I mentioned, you can use DealCheck online. So if you go to DealCheck.io, you can use it on any desktop, laptop, any computer with just your browser. Or you can download the DealCheck mobile app for your iOS or Android device. Use it on your phone. It's optimized for the phone. It'll sync all of your data across your devices, so you can be like driving at an open house. Your agent showed you a nice property. You ran the numbers right there on your phone. It looked pretty good. You can come back to your home or office, open it up on your computer, dive in a little deeper, look at comps or whatever, just to make sure it's a good deal. Put in an offer, use the offer calculator.
yeah.
So cloud sync. And
I
uh,
love it.
yep.
Sorry, I
And
cut you off. Keep going.
I'm just done. I can talk about it forever, but it's actually, we have several tiers for usage, and we have a free tier. It's free forever. It's not a free trial. So you can actually create a free deal check account. You're limited by some of the features and how many properties you can analyze, but we have tons of people just use the free version if they're only analyzing a few properties a month. They're kind of starting out. They don't want to invest a lot of money into a platform. No worries. Just
Yeah,
start using it for free forever. Again, it's not a trial. It's literally free forever. And we wanted to keep it that way to make it accessible to especially beginner investors, because I remember when I was starting out, didn't have a lot of money. I see all these services charging me subscriptions. It's hard on you when you're a new investor. But with
absolutely.
DealCheck, you can start with the free tier. We do have some upgrade options if you want the full suite of tools. They're really reasonably priced, like a few cups of coffee a month.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the other thing that I love about it too, because I think the plan that I looked at, it was like $7 or $8 a month,
yeah,
maybe,
I
and I
mean,
was like,
it's super cheap,
yeah, the value
compared
is
to.
definitely there. You actually just gave me a pretty good idea. Once I get more comfortable using the software, I may host a demo in our in my Facebook group and just show folks how easy this is. Since I'm now an affiliate, I want to make sure they know I'm using it, and I'm just not blowing smoke up their rear. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's that's a great idea, and I always encourage people, like, just try the free version.
Yeah,
We don't ask for your credit card. We're not going to ask you for a payment. You're not going to get charged. Like, just try the free version, run a few properties. You like it, keep using it for free. And then if you want to upgrade, reasonably priced, type in W2 cap at checkout, and you'll get a 25% forever discount on top of the low prices that we have now. So that's specific to W2 Capitalist podcast listeners.
absolutely.
Promo code W2 cap. So
I appreciate the plug there also for the promo code.
yeah, no, I want people, like I said, it's obviously it's a business for me, but the biggest kind of the biggest reward for me is not monetary. It's getting those emails from investors that use the tool to either help them avoid horrible deals,
Yeah,
or use the tool to help them find those gems, quickly put together an offer, and close on them. Because I really want to help investors, because I've been in those shoes. I know how difficult and stressful the especially buying your first property was like.
oh yeah,
The
yeah,
world was ending for me. I
yeah.
looked over everything a million times. I was sweating. It was.
Yeah,
I think I read the whole mortgage packet that they give you, the 500 pages, like the closing took 3 hours. It was a
Yeah.
stressful time, but if we can help you run those analysis projections with DealCheck, knowing that you're not messing up any of the numbers, the formulas are consistent, everything is the same, and they're kind of all the properties you ever looked at are saved there for you, so you can look back at them later.
Yeah.
So if we can help you take that out of the stress, I'd be happy.
Yeah, and matter of fact, there's a guy who messaged me on Facebook this morning. He said, I'm not going to say his name. He says, "Hey, bud, question: what are your thoughts on properties that just break even? What is your take on the mindset that this will be another property building capital, even though it's not producing additional income?" My answer was that scenario doesn't fit in my investing strategy, but everyone is different. What I should have answered with is, have you ran this deal through DealCheck.io using the promo code David2K to make sure you're getting the right getting
Well,
the
no,
right?
it's valid because one
Yeah,
of the tools we have in DealCheck is this thing called buy and hold projection. So, in addition to just looking at what the numbers will look like today if you bought the property, it'll show you the numbers 35 years into the future. For
yeah,
every year, you'll see what your cash flow will be, and that's actually a very good exercise to do for a property like your subscriber just described. Okay, it's breaking even now, but what is it going to look like 5 or 10 years from now? When am I going to actually start making money on it? And it's hard to answer that question, uh, without looking at those long-term projections, factoring in, your price appreciation, rent growth, if there is any inflation, and all of that. I probably would pass on the property just like you did, or
yeah,
you
yeah,
suggested, just because of, I'd like to get something even now, but you still
yeah.
want to look at those projections.
And I'm not into a point where I'm gonna play in the appreciation game, right?
Yeah, it's
It,
it's a gamble.
it is, and that strategy may be part of our overall view eventually, but it's not today. Yeah,
Right.
it's not today. All right, so I've been asking everybody this who comes on the show recently. When you look at your crystal ball, where do you think the market is headed?
Ooh.
And realize this conversation is happening in early 2020, right? For you listeners.
Yeah, and should we read all the disclaimers that it's
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
No, but it's a tough question. Everybody's talking of a crash.
Yeah.
I If I had to say, I don't really see a big crash coming. Just kind of my gut feeling and what I see in the industry. I definitely see a slowdown, or maybe not as explosive growth as we saw over the last 5 years in the real estate market. Uh, Maybe a minor correction or kind of flat line. I just don't see, like a big crash coming.
Yeah.
Um, but what I'll say with that, again, I could be totally wrong, but I've never been a fan of timing the market anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
you could wait right now on, you could say, hey, I got 100,000 to invest. I think the market's going to crash. And you could be right. Market crashes this summer, and then you go in and buy a property and you're all happy and doing great. Or you could sit and wait for the market to crash for 5, 10 years, in the whole time missing out on your cash flow, your price growth, and all of that. And if I had to pick between the two, I would say just go ahead and invest now, or at least start looking at deals. It may be harder to find deals right now in a lot of the markets because inventory is a little low. The prices have appreciated a lot, but it is still possible, if you look hard enough. And I think if you can, maybe spend a few months, like, be realistic. It might take you 6 months to find a good deal, but when you find it, I think you'd be happier that you bought it now than if you just waited and waited on the sidelines for that correction that nobody really knows when it's coming.
Yeah, and how patient are you being right now when you're looking for deals? Because for the most part, I've given I've given up, but it's okay because I'm giving myself a couple of excuses. Uh, Number one, in the last 8 months, I've changed jobs. I left the job I was at for 15 years to start a new gig with a different company. We had baby number three, which we're still getting used to that, and we've got a lot of momentum coming with the W2 capitalist. So I've been focused on that. I'm still analyzing, like when I left the mastermind the other night, left. It was a Zoom call just like this. So when I hung up
Yeah.
with those guys, what I was committing to doing, but between now or that call in the next 2 weeks, was to analyze at least 3 multifamily properties, because I've got a self-directed RA that I want to do something with. It's been sitting idle for too long, and you know, I'm already done with it. That challenge that I put on myself, and there's one that's a maybe. The other 2 are just no. So it's really trying my patience. But what are you doing? Like, are you altering your criteria and saying, hey, we're going to do this? Or are you altering your marketing to try to find more properties? What are you doing to try to swim through this pretty tough market we're in right now?
It's more probably not so much altering criteria, but altering kind of lead generation. We bought, over the last kind of 2 years, we actually bought a lot. We bought 20 plus units just in the last 2 years. And all of those purchases have been off market.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
when I first started, we looked at a lot of MLS properties. This was like 5 years ago. And there were deals to be had on the MLS. And what I've seen, and that's kind of like the go-to right source. Most people like get together
Yeah.
with an agent, have an MLS feed, or maybe they go on, Redfin, Zillow, like Realtor.com, and look for properties themselves, which is basically coming from the MLS. But what I've noticed in the last few couple of years, especially last year, just the MLS is almost like non-existent for good deals.
Yeah.
And we really had to start looking off market. For us, what worked especially well have been direct mail campaigns, very targeted, very small. It's probably a whole topic for another podcast how we do them, but
Absolutely. Yes,
basically,
sir.
sent out just like 100 mailers and had a crazy high response rate from that. Or it was networking, really networking in a targeted area with agents, property managers, and basically telling them like, look, if you have a client that's selling properties, they want to sell quick, they don't want to deal with, getting offers accepted or rejected, like falling through, call me and we'll work something out with them. And we actually got a few properties that way. So, because a lot of sellers just don't want to list on the MLS, even in today's market, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They have some price they want to sell, or maybe they have a distressed property and they know it's going to like not sell well. If you're able to kind of get in through your network and see those deals first, get together with the seller, you can close on something actually really good without even having to go to market. So it's more have been looking at alternate, deal acquisition channels instead of just, saying, hey, I'm just going to wait to see what's going to pop up on the MLS, because in a lot of markets, well, in Kansas City, that's really where we're looking right now. It's just the deals on there are far and few between, and most always they're either gone in a day or two, or even if they're passable, or you're just sitting waiting for them.
Gotcha.
So and I actually think that that's even in a kind of in a buyer's market, even in how the market was like 5-6 years ago, having multiple lead channels, so to speak, is always a plus. So instead of just saying, I'm going to see what my agent brings me, and that's it.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can look yourself on those websites that I mentioned. You can try direct mail. You can work with wholesalers, find a few wholesalers in the area that you like and get on their buyers list. You can look maybe on like Bigger Pockets Marketplace or other places where deals are posted. So basically, the more places you look, like the more deals come across your desk, the higher the chances that you'll find something worthwhile. Like you looked at 3, you said one of them was maybe, 2 are
No.
2 are passable. Then,
Yeah.
well, maybe if you looked at 30, the kind of like, a much higher ratio, then maybe you would have had like 1 or 2 okay deals, or even maybe 1 great deal in there. So at a certain point, it comes down to volume, how much deals pass through your desk. And, there's a certain percentage of them, a certain small percentage that would be those gems that you're looking for. But
Yeah.
the fewer deals you look at, the less likely you are to find one like that.
Yeah, and I definitely need to crank it up when it comes to looking at deals, right? And I've said this several times over the last couple of weeks. I need to get broke.
Yeah.
I'm kind of using that money that's sitting in the self-directed RA as a crutch for me not to be as active but I'm also trying to remind myself we're still getting used to baby number 3.
Yeah.
So
Well, obviously you got to balance, right?
yeah, we do. And I don't know, we'll see. I'm trying to get that into something because I'm just sitting there saying, looking at it, and that money is actually going negative in value. If
Oh
I'm
yeah.
being honest,
Non-performing.
yeah, yeah. So I need to do something with that. Anton, it's been incredible. I'm actually jealous of how you say mobile. I know that's your Russian accent really comes out when you say that word. So that's when I picked up on. I was like, man, I gotta start.
Maybe I'll record it for you and
Yeah,
send you like
I'll put
an
it in my phone.
MP3 file. Yeah.
That'd be my ringtone for you whenever you
Right.
call. That's awesome. Hey, thank you for this. I really appreciate your time coming on and talking about DealCheck and doing and actually uh, telling me about some features that I didn't even know were in there. So, um, before we close out, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I actually just give people my personal email. It's just Anton at DealCheck.io. That's Anton at DealCheck.io. So I don't mind hearing from you guys. If I get a lot of emails, but I actually reply to pretty much all of them. Just may take me a few days. So if you have questions about DealCheck, obviously you have a feature request, suggestion, we're very open to that. Or if you're just curious about my real estate investing strategy, or need some advice, I'll do my best to help you with that, or direct you to like an article or something that I've written, or maybe another podcast I did where I discussed that in detail. So just send me an email, Anton at DealCheck.io. Have no problem. You guys email me directly.
And I'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks again, man. We will. I'm going to take you up. You kind of hinted around of another show, more topics. Definitely want to do that.
Absolutely.
And I also want to learn a bit more about how you're from Russia, but as your bio says, you served in the U.S. Navy, right?
I did. Yeah, it's a
So
crazy
I want to
story.
get into that at some point in time. By the way, thank you for your service, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank you, Jay. Looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. See you.
Take care.
Hey, 4 things before you get out of here today. Number 1, thank you for watching. Sincerely appreciate that. It helps with our ratings with YouTube and all that. And along those lines, speaking of helping with ratings, if you could just hit that like button for me, the little thumbs up, and also subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. If you are a subscriber, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We are trying to grow the presence here on YouTube, and this is you liking, subscribing, and commenting helps with that whole algorithm piece. So let us know. It also helps me know what kind of content you're interested in. And in the comment section, if you just list that one golden nugget that you took away from today's episode, that would really help me out and engage, right? I'll get an alert when you say something about the episode today, when you make it in the comment, and I will respond to you right away. And it'll be me. It won't be anybody else, I promise. And also, I can't let you get out of here today. This is point number 3, I think. I can't let you get out here today, but highlighting this affiliate for us, DealCheck, incredible piece of software. Whether you're doing burrs, you're doing fix and flips, you're doing buy and holds, and buy and holds is single family and multifamily. I used it last week to underwrite an 8-unit deal, and I'm going to be using it for any of our properties up to a certain number. Probably after the 50 range, I get my real heavy duty calculator out that I'll use that, but I'm also going to then take that and put it in the DealCheck, because the graphs that and just the amount of data they put into the reports that you can provide banks. Hell, I even sent one to a seller. I was like, here's the number. I know you're probably not going to be happy about it, but here's why I sent it to you, because I'm trying to hit these numbers, and we're currently negotiating on that deal. So we'll see what happens. But we have an affiliate code in the description below. Make sure you use that. If you don't, just go to DealCheck.io from any browser, and you can be able to sign up there. Signing up is free, right? So you can use it. You only start paying for it once you need to start unlocking pieces of software. For what I do with it, I'm a buy and hold guy, so from what I need, it's $5 a month when I use the promo code W2CAP. So make sure, whether you use our affiliate link or not, that you use that promo code, because it's going to give you 25% off either the monthly subscription you sign up for, or the annual. They've got 2 different options. The annual gives you a little bit better discount anyway. The 4th thing is Operation Underground Railroad. If you've listened to anything that I've been doing for the last year, you know that I highly support this organization. Again, the promo code W2CAP, you can text that to 41404, and you're going to get an immediate response link back to our fundraiser page so you can see what we're doing for them. But also from there, you can hop over and see what all they're about. Highly recommend you follow these guys on social media and everything like that, because they're just ridding the world of not only human trafficking, but more specifically child sex trafficking, which is the most disgusting thing that I can ever think of. That this goes on. My heart goes out to those kids, and that's why I support them. Right, having 3 of my own, I just can't imagine them being in that environment. I'll give you a bonus. Okay, that was the 4 things, right? So, like, follow, subscribe is number 1. 2, DealCheck was number 2, I think. I'm losing count here. OUR was number 3. The 5th, whatever the next number is, the 4th or 5th thing, is my hat has been crooked this entire time, and I'm not going to do anything about it. It's fine. It's okay. All right. On a serious note, let's get to work.